أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن لا
St. Titus was of Gentile birth, it seems, and for that reason had not been circumcised when he became a Christian. He is known to have taken part in the Council of Jerusalem. He was sent to Corinth on a difficult mission and was later left by St. Paul to organize the church in Crete, of which he is venerated to this day as its first bishop. Paul's epistle to him insists that he was to ordain presbyters. That gives us the word priest. Presbyteros has been condensed into the short priest. The same has happened in German, which, by the way, is a historic indication of already the church structure given by the Lord and understood as such by the early church. Which, by the way, is your answer for noisy women who don't like deacons. I close the parenthesis. Titus's body was supposed to be buried in Gortyna, that's in Crete, until the head was taken to Venice in 823. His cult was mainly Eastern. The Greeks and Syriacs keep his feast on the 25th of August. In the West, he's commemorated in the Roman martyrology on January the 4th, but since Pius IX, his feast was on the 6th of February, and then in 1970, the revision that we know placed him with St. Timothy, for obvious reasons, on the same day, which is the 26th of January. So we have here what was in place until that revision. Crete has the Eastern Rite, and in that continuity we see precisely the way in which we owe much to the Greek culture. In fact, it is interesting to note that they still pray and read the sacred scripture in the Greek of the time, and it's perfectly well understood in church, whereas in our equivalent in Italy, they read in Italian, and the difference between Italian and Latin is greater. That's just another parenthesis for historic note. Now, we note that these people went about doing good, and they were actually, in their persons, living out what the Lord commissioned here when he wanted to send people out, often in twos. The way in which these people, Titus and Timothy, Tychicus, and so on, were close friends and collaborators with St. Paul is an indication of the importance of this team effort. We do things well and we do them in harmony. And you who are in a good Christian marriage, remember, you are a team for the Lord, a little domestic church. And for those thinking of marriage, remember it's important to marry in the Lord so that can actually happen. Otherwise, it's very dysfunctional. Now, in practice, the Lord wants those who proclaim his gospel to proclaim it in all their being. What does he say? On entering any house, first say, peace, shalom, to this house. And look what he answers. If there is a peaceable man there, now the Greek goes straight back to the Aramaic Hebrew. It would have been, if there is a bar shalom, a son of peace there. That's how they put it. In the Old Testament, we have reference to the prophet Elijah. a man of hairs. That is a very wild-looking man. So if there's a son of peace there, that's what the original has, your peace will repose upon him. If not, it will return to you. I want to dwell for a few minutes on this question of peace and the way in which souls are brought over. In your mind's eye, try and imagine a situation, maybe in a century's time, in which in a theological or philosophical debate in maybe an Oxford college, people are talking about something, and at a certain point, somebody present says, "Don, I don't share your opinion. Would you mind frightfully if I cut off your tongue?" We laugh. And yet, that's the reality of about a third of this planet. Listen to this. When we have to do with a purported religion, we need, with the calm of logic and wisdom, to sit back and without losing our cool, to analyze with the instruments of science its value. All that is necessary is to ascertain the character and motives of the founder or writer, and the result or drift of his writings. Mahomet proves himself an epileptic adventurer, and his Quran a travesty of Judaism and Christianity, settling like a blight upon civilization. If one looks carefully, either through reading or at what is available, e.g. in good, well put together YouTube documentaries, at the historic origin and progress of Islam, one observes what? Essentially, a person who is influenced by many things and in a syncretistical way adopts them and creates something of his own. Moreover, one observes within the body of writing left an indifferent agglomeration of self-contradictory precepts. We have claims of an inspiration of a literal way which actually scientifically, historically, logically do not in the least hold up to scrutiny. One of two things took place in the case of Muhammad. Either he was telling the truth when it came to the apparition of the angel Gabriel, or he was not. If he was telling the truth, it can only mean that he was seeing an apparition of the archangel Gabriel, which was demonic. If he was not telling the truth, he is an impostor. It does not just apply to him. Joseph Smith and his companions turned out to be rebellious incendiaries and murderers, and their Book of Mormon a ridiculous fake establishing a fanatic and bigamous theocracy. Mary Baker Eddy, after crazy quilting scraps from the Bible with shreds of Buddhism, Brahmanism and Theosophy, shuffles off her wrinkled coil amid a numerous following of dupes, who rather expected her faked science to keep her perpetually alive or raise her up from the dead. That's Christian Science. And on one can go now indefinitely with many a fake founder. In Regensburg, some years ago, Pope Benedict came out with a lecture in which he included something which was rather uncomfortable for people to hear. He was placing it in a wider context, that of knowing how to think. It was a discourse of academic value on faith and reason, and the place of logic in our dialogue. He was one of the greatest lecturers that Regensburg had known, an encyclopedia walking, and a brain thinking clearly and calmly. In that context, he looked historically at one point in history which changed history. He is quoting the Emperor Manuel II Paleologos, who said this. He was the Emperor of the East, Byzantium. "Show me just what Muhammad brought that was new, and there you will find things only evil and inhuman, such as command to spread by the sword the faith he preached." Listen carefully to what he's saying. He's talking about one only issue: how one persuades another human being. The point here is this: dialogue was not the instrument, but violence. 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 And if one looks historically at the track record of Islam, it's made of violence, violence, violence. Slavery of the worst and most atrocious order. Violence to young girls in their genitals and so on. All the culture of the Eastern world under this religion is violent and humanly degrading. My guardian angel in the Carthusians, they call him L'Ange, the person who forms apostolate when he's entering, how to do things, he's with you at the beginning. Who wrote to me actually not long ago, Dom Norbert. He was an expert in Oriental languages, Arab and Hebrew. When in Arabia one day, he was in a car, a taxi or something, going from A to B. But he understood Arabic, and he was listening to what the driver was saying to the Arab next to him. And the conversation went like this. "Last night, I had a bust-up with my wife, and I thumped her in such a way that she lost her child." And on went the conversation. Don Norbert commented, "That's how they treat women." The Pope, at the time, Benedict, goes on to develop his whole theme with this in the same lecture. "Violence is incomparable with the nature of God and the nature of the soul. God is not pleased by blood, and not acting reasonably is contrary to God's nature. Faith is born in the soul, not the body. Whoever would lead someone to faith needs the ability to speak well and to reason properly, without violence and threats. To convince a reasonable soul, one does not need a strong arm, or weapons of any kind, or any other means of threatening a person with death. Permit me to quote just a few bits of the Holy Quran, so-called. There shall be no compulsion in the acceptance of the religion. Then, Sutra 2nd, 191 to 193, just to see how within the body you've got this contradiction going on. And kill them wherever you find them, and turn them out from where they have turned you out. Compare that with the gospel we just read. And disbelief, listen to this one, and disbelief is worse than killing. Do you see what that's saying? By the way, do you know that in Britain right now, people in the legal profession are starting to have to learn the law of the Sharia because they have to handle integration. Girls who are influenced by Western culture who are therefore under death threats. So disbelief is worse than killing. But if they desist, that is, if they agree with what you're saying, then lo, Allah is forgiving and merciful. Notice the if. And fight them until there is no more disbelief and worshipping of others. That means what they say 5 times a day, us lot. We worship others. We've added things to Allah. Trinity. And worshipping of others along with Allah, and worship is for Allah alone. But if they cease, let there be no transgression except against Adzalimun. These are the polytheists and wrongdoers, that's us, because we have more than one God according to them. Notice that the picture of Allah is of a totalitarian being whose forgiveness is only on a conditional basis. If one completely renounces one's beliefs and therefore one's conscience. Now, do you see what's going on? Convert or else. I was talking to somebody who comes every morning to Mass at the Hermitage, a very cultured man, and he was quoting a text which went something like this with regard to an infidel or a blasphemer. You know what that means? Take him to the highest building you can find and cast him down. If he is not dead, stone him until he expires. Compare that with the gospel we've just read. Now, my friends, let's get this straight. God is truth, and there is only one truth. Indeed, the self-understanding of the Eternal Father is the eternal Word, the Logos. He is not divided. If someone claims to have had an apparition or a message from him or from anyone pertaining to him. Either he's telling the truth or he's taken in. The devil hates Christians, hates the means of grace, and is a genius at devising hugely powerful means to make sure that they're attacked. So let's be clear. God does not want what a third of the planet is doing in his name. Let's pray for them, but be careful, because the devil means business.
أشهد أن محمدًا رسول الله.
O post me, o per me, o ad me. An exclamation of Adam Scott, the medieval abbot, as he reflected on the power of Christ. Lines written in student days in Rome on Ascension Day. O Christ, alive and well, O Christ of fire, here standing in the sun, O Son of Man, of essence, God of God. To Godhead higher rise into clouds that hide thee, mid light wan from looking at thy shining. Gaze upon the ball that thou didst tread, and shalt recall to order at the ordering whereon the all shall be what can alone be all. Thy toy, O King, that with a finger's power thou didst bid be, and happily combine in cause and cause entwined at perfect hour, in calcule of time's dawn, born once to shine. O Lamb, once slain, now standing, stand in might upon a cosmos dreamt upon a night. O Lamb, once slain, now standing